Hey guys, welcome back to another Maledictor update. This is a big one, both in terms of size and in terms of importance, because this is the last update before the release on Steam. Spoilers, I guess. The game is cleared to release in early access on July 14th on Steam, so we've got basically about a week to go. So it'll be very, very soon. Keep an eye out for that. And let's go ahead and jump on into this now. Fixed E1M7 gate collision. There was a gate at the end of E1M7 that just didn't have collision for a weird reason. So I added the collision back in. So now it's all fixed. Next, more models. Pretty self-explanatory. Next, adjusted E1M1. That map had kind of like a long stretch that was a bit too open. And I didn't really like how that flowed that much, so I kind of restructured that area a little bit so that now it feels a lot better and flows a lot better. So I'm a much bigger fan of how E1M1 feels now. Store screenshots updated. It doesn't really affect the game all that much, but it's good nonetheless. The store update, or the store page, I think was using screenshots from the first alpha build, first or second, so from a while back. So now, got them updated, got more of them. Now it actually looks a lot more official. And speaking of official, early access trailer made. Yes. If you have not seen that already, then it is available on the Steam store page and on the Armadillo Entertainment YouTube channel, both as a video and as a short. Go take a look at that if you have not yet. Next, game submitted for Steam review. So this is a process that every game on Steam has to go through, where you basically send a build of the game into Valve, and they check to see if it actually has the features that you say it does. So things like localization options and controller support and things like that. So we'll get back to that soon. Fixed backpack bug. There was a bug that would happen with a backpack where you could pick up multiple of them and each one would increase your max ammo count. So I went ahead and fixed that so that now when you pick up multiple backpacks, it only increases your max ammo once and then, gives you the ammo that you're supposed to get. But yeah, that's a bug that would be difficult to run into because, backpacks are pretty major pickups in the game, so there's not many of them. So your chances of getting multiple backpacks in an episode, very, very low, but not impossible. So now they will work correctly. Next, reduced max shotgun ammo. Yeah, I felt like it was just too easy to mass shotgun ammo, and the solution to that is kind of either to really reduce the amount of shotgun ammo pickups, which I'm not a huge fan of that, but the other solution could be to reduce the effectiveness of the shotgun, which I really don't want to do either, because I like the shotgun to be strong. It should be strong. So reducing the max shotgun ammo amount basically just means that you can't just run through an entire level with maxed out shotgun ammo and clear it all out with the shotgun. This way you actually have to use different weapons. So that might mean your amount of ammo is unchanged, and you might, if you manage your pickups well, then you could still have the same amount of shotgun ammo throughout an entire level. But if you pick up, if you are one ammo short of max and you pick up a shotgun ammo pickup, that still only gives you one ammo. So you might lose out on ammo overall for the shotgun. Or you might just have to, be a little smarter about your pickups and keep in mind how many rounds you have and leave a pickup for later to come back to. So, yep, just balancing that out a little bit. Next, fixed level restart bug. And I gotta be honest, I don't remember this one. I don't remember what the bug was, but, you know. It's been a long month with a lot of changes and additions made to the game, so this one just kind of slipped my mind, but just know there was a bug for restarting a level, and now there isn't. So hooray for that. Next, E1M7 and E1M3 improvements. Same thing as E1M1, where just fixing up certain areas of the levels, making them flow a little bit better, and also just adding some more visual aspects to them, so just making them look a little nicer. Fixed controller UI bugs. So this was part of the Steam review that I mentioned earlier, where they found that there was a bug with using a controller on the menus where you could go into some menus, and when you backed out of them, you couldn't control the menus anymore with a controller. That was basically the previous menu would retain control over your controller inputs and wouldn't give them over to, or wouldn't pass them through to the new menu. So, got that fixed, so that doesn't happen anymore. Next, added custom cursor. This was a solution to a pretty annoying and frustrating issue that should not have been as frustrating as it was, but UIs in Unreal 5 are kind of a pain. Basically ran into a big problem, and rather than explain it all, I'll just say I fixed it by pretty much like faking a mouse cursor. It's still exactly where your mouse is, so it's an accurate mouse cursor, and it looks different. I can even show you if we go to our main menu here. See, we've got our new custom mouse cursor. Great for that. So that was basically a workaround for something, for a bigger problem. And so the problem's not a problem anymore, but we now have a shiny new custom mouse cursor we're able to use. Next, more sprites. The tradition continues. And more ambient sounds. So just making levels sound a little bit more alive. And game cleared on Steam, so yes, it is officially cleared by Valve. So it can be sold on Steam, and will go live for sale in early access on July 14th. So definitely keep that date in mind. Fixed a throw strength visual. What can happen with that is, depending on your resolution, well, really depending on your aspect ratio, the throw strength bar for the Molotovs and IEDs could get stretched or squished. And so I basically just fixed that so that doesn't happen anymore. Fixed aspect ratios, moving buttons. More UI fun. Yeah, realistically, this is not... That was a problem that barely existed from a practicality standpoint. I think on Steam, according to the last hardware survey, about 75% of people are using a 16:9 aspect ratio. It's like 1920 by 1080. Things like that. That issue would only really show up if you were on a 4:3 or an ultra wide resolution, which is a very limited amount of people. But it was still a problem. And I really don't like to just leave problems just loose in the game. I like to, you know, as soon as I find out about a problem, I want to fix it. So I got that problem fixed, so it's no longer an issue for those of you who decide to play on a 4x3 CRT monitor. Next, fixed menu highlight bugs. Yeah. That one's maybe a little more technical than really needs to get into. Just suffice it to say that the highlighting for different menu options could be a little wonky sometimes, but they're not anymore. So, you're right. And fix a menu bug for ultra wides. Yes. Ultra wides. Gosh. Ultra wides, for those of you who use ultra wides, I am sure that you are familiar with many games having maybe not the greatest support for ultra wide resolutions. And I'm doing my best to try to adjust for that. But I will say that ultra wides are weird. They cause a lot of problems. And it's such a small use case, whatever. It's such a small user base of people that have ultra wide monitors that I can kind of understand some games not having the best support for them, mostly just because it's not something that a lot of people will think about. I'm only aware of it because I decided to specifically go in and start messing around with my menus in different aspect ratios because I noticed an issue pop up when I was playing on a different monitor that was a really, really weird resolution. So hopefully ultra wide support should be good, but there might still be issues. Menus should work just fine for it, though. I'll have to look a little bit more into it. There's a whole lot of priorities going on. There's a lot of things to work on, so sometimes testing for less common aspect ratios can just kind of slip the mind a little bit. Next, axe enemies can now place traps. Yep, this is something that I've really wanted to do, and I want to do more for different enemies. This is going to be one of the things that ties into difficulty. So, for instance, on easy, the pistol cultists can't throw grenades. And on hard, the axe cultists can put down a bear trap. So this is just trying to add a little bit more versatility into the enemies and add some more mechanics so that as you go up into higher difficulties, the game starts to evolve a little bit more and get challenging in ways that are different from, the enemies just have more health or they hit harder or they're a little bit faster. I really like it when difficulties add more mechanics. So I'm trying to add more mechanics into the game and trying not to necessarily make them all for normal or remove them for easy. Those are options, but I do want to make it so that hard mode actually has some challenging additions to it. Yes, there's that. Steam page localized for French, Spanish, Russian, and German. Big thanks to my localizers on that one. I really appreciate that. And so yes, now if you are not an English speaker, I don't know what you're doing this far into the video, but now you can actually see the page in your native language if you so happen to speak English or French or Spanish or Russian or German. So those are the languages that the game is localized in. So it just makes sense that the Steam page would be localized for that as well. Next, more Jib sprites. I want to keep on adding to these, but got a few more added in now, so you get more variety out of the jibs. Tweaked enemy vision loss code. Yeah, this is just kind of trying to make the enemies react a little bit more naturally when they lose vision of you. So, here's that. And jibs interact with the jibs interact with the ceiling. So that was one of the things that I really, really liked about Brutal Doom. And I guess also Catch Up was another mod that would do that for Doom, where, you know, if, you know, you kind of like jib somebody and a jib goes up and hits the ceiling, it drips down and stuff. We've got an essence of that. Still, the gore system I want to work more on. I will definitely be touching up more over time, but you know, for now, that's adding. That's a mechanic for it added in, and it makes it feel a lot better. The only problem is that a lot of ceilings aren't low enough in the game right now to make use of that, so I'll have to start working on that a little bit. But you know, we're getting there. Next, added more blood spray to jibbing. Yes, the jibbing felt very... It felt like there was something missing to it, but I wasn't quite sure what. Because there was a big blood spray when somebody would blow up, but now there's kind of like more blood coming off of the jibs themselves. So it makes it feel a lot better. It makes it feel a lot more eventful. So the jibbing feels a lot better now. I'm much happier with it now than I was before. Touched up E1M7. Yep. That kind of ties into E1M7 improvements. The touch-ups are kind of just going in and finding smaller adjustments to make that aren't really... that don't affect nearly as much. But now it's a bit better. More materials. These are very nice. Materials are things like, you know, the level textures, essentially. So every new material is a little bit more visual variety that can be put into the levels. And so new materials, I'm always very happy to get more materials in. And got them in for E2M1, which has just gotten started. So I've been trying not to go directly into episode 2 because I wanted to, you know, polish up the game more, add more things, and just kind of get things more prepared for the release on Steam. But you know, you don't always have ideas fresh in your head, so I did start up E2M1, and E2M1 I think is going to be an interesting one. It's, as you can see, we are on a paddle boat, big paddle boat, and this is going to be kind of reminiscent of like Blood's train level. I think Blood might have also had another level that was... Yeah, it actually... I believe it had like a little steamboat level. So that was kind of like this. So, I remember those levels feeling pretty unique, and really just kind of wanted to try it. And so I think that it's a really fun way of kind of bringing in a little transition level, especially for, you know, between episodes. So I'm pretty happy with how this is shaping up so far. It's gonna be kind of going back because in episode 1 the levels got progressively longer as it went. So now that we're starting up a new episode, starting kind of with shorter levels and building back up. So this isn't going to be, this shouldn't be a super short one, but it'll be a shorter one. But it should be a pretty good environment. Next, arms dealer added. And that also ties into our AI testing room here. Ties into the next one of 3 new weapons added. So I originally had the idea of just being able to add in, 3 guns that you might want to get more ammo in, or ammo for, or maybe could get access to a gun a little early if I put one in early in the level. But then I kind of had the feeling that it might feel a little bit more fun if you had the opportunity to either upgrade a weapon or get a new one. And I originally wanted to go with weapon upgrades, but the problem for me is that when I get a weapon upgrade, I always want to see some kind of visual change for the upgrade. So, I didn't really... I kind of figured that you would have to have the upgrade involved with the, the visual would need to involve the actual upgrade in some way. Like if you made a gun more accurate, you could put a compensator on it or something. So I felt like that could be an option, but then I thought that I would have to go back and I'd have to edit every sprite for the gun anyway. So if I'm going to be going back and doing all of the weapon sprites for every single action you can do with a weapon, I might as well just add a completely new weapon in. So now, to spoil it a little bit, I guess, I added in, these are actually side grade weapons. They work a little differently, but they're not necessarily better or worse than the already available weapon. They work a little differently, though. So we've got the 1911 to replace the... Well, not actually replace. You can have them both at the same time and switch between them. So we've got the 1911 for the, in place of the Glock. We've got the sawn-off lever action shotgun in place of the pump action shotgun. And then we've got a UMP-45 in place of the MAC-10. And so the 1911 shoots faster, but is much less accurate. The lever action sawn-off has a faster rate of fire, but a lot more spread on the pellets. And the UMP is more accurate, but it shoots a lot slower. So you kind of are able to... You'll be able to come up with some new use cases for them, where they, you might use them in place of another gun you would normally use in some kind of situation. So ideally, I want them all to be useful, but I don't want them to feel like direct upgrades, and I definitely don't want them to feel like downgrades. So the arms dealer, the way that it works is you have these 3 weapons here, and you can choose to get one of them. So depending on what you want, that's going to affect which one you're able to get. Now my plan for this, since we've got a new pistol, a new shotgun, and a new submachine gun, is that for episode 2, I thought it would be pretty cool that these wind up being the new standard for the second episode, and the arms dealer will let you get the episode 1 weapons back. So that's what I'm planning on doing right now. So I feel like that'll be kind of more fun and a little bit more unique, where a new episode means not just starting off with higher tier guns earlier, but getting completely new guns. So I think that'll be pretty fun. So I'm really happy with how these are feeling, and I'm happy with them actually getting them in. Next, player blueprint improved, more efficient and easier to add new weapons. So the new efficiency thing is kind of a technical thing where it's a smaller sized blueprint now, so I cut down on the size. And it should actually run a little bit faster for certain things. That's all. Those are all kind of on paper improvements. But what is not an on paper improvement is making it easier to add new weapons. It is now very streamlined for me to be able to put new weapons in. So when I got the 1911 put in, I had to. It was kind of not an ordeal, but it was some work. And while I was getting it put in, I took a little bit of extra effort and made it so that the shotgun and UMP would be a lot easier to put in. Everything is already structured now so that it's not necessarily dragging and dropping a new gun in, but it's pretty close. So if I wind up wanting to add more guns into the game in the future, it'll be pretty easy. So very glad to have that adjusted now. Fixed a weapon menu bug. Really, that was just a bug when you would pull up the weapon menu. We pick up our guns. And you can see the little weapon select here. This is in case you don't want to use the number keys or if you're using a controller. There was a bug where certain ones would be highlighted, even though they weren't selected. That was just kind of a weird little quirk. Didn't really affect the functionality of it. And it wasn't all that noticeable, but, like I said, there's something wrong with the game, and, I should fix it. So, fixed that, so it's not a problem anymore. Then, weapon select menu works with the new weapon slots. Yes, you see here, got 3 on the bottom. So these are the slots that they also take up. So you can, if you want to equip the lever action shotgun, you can hit 3, 3. You'll take it out. Or you can just click on it in the menu, whatever you prefer. I should also mention that if you do not have the you don't have the first weapon available, then you can still just pull it out normally. So it'll work seamlessly. Next, fixed automatic weapon firing delay. So it worked before. The way that timers work in Unreal is when you set an event to repeat on a timer, you put a delay between how long it takes before the timer repeats. So, like 1 second to have something happen once every second. The problem is, it runs that delay as soon as the timer is started. So, when you start the timer, it doesn't immediately do the thing and then count down. It counts down and then does the thing. So what was happening was that if you held down mouse 1 for an automatic weapon, it would count down the delay. And that would happen with all the automatic weapons, but the reason I'm only addressing this now is because the MAC-10 shoots so fast, you couldn't really tell that there was a delay. The UMP, though, since it shoots slower than the MAC-10, you absolutely can feel the delay, or you could feel the delay on that. So I went in and I fixed all of the automatic weapons so that they don't do that anymore, and they feel much more responsive now. It was a night and day difference with the UMP. So they feel better now. Touched up weapon sounds. Yep, just as I was adding in the new weapon sounds for the new weapons, I kind of went back and adjusted some of the previous weapons a little bit more. So now they sound distinct from the new ones, and they sound a little bit better. And then finally, cached weapon sounds. So the weapon sounds, because I'm not exactly an audio engineer here, the weapon sounds are done as sound cues. So if we look, you can see it is basically a bunch of sounds being mixed live rather than being mixed ahead of time into one sound file and then put into the game. It's multiple files being mixed together live. And that's mainly a thing because when I buy sound packs, they come through the Unreal Store. So they immediately get plugged into the game, directly into the editor. So it's a lot easier to experiment with different sound effects for mixing by going in and just doing this all live and putting it into a sound cue. But the problem with that is that once, for the very first launch of the game, when you shoot the first time, sometimes it won't play all the sounds because it has to load them all into memory. And they're small, they're really small, but it still takes a little bit of time to do that. And so it sounds weird the first time that it plays. And so I went in and now it actually plays the sound effects at 0 volume when you launch the game, so that it already has the sounds in memory, so it has them all cached. And I made sure not to do that for a ton of sounds, just the weapon sounds really that are all mixed. So that way it's just the ones that are necessary for it to be done for. So now that bug should not come up anymore. And yes, that is that is it for this update. Coming up, like I said, just a little over a week for the game to be released on Steam in early access, July 14th. And I'll be getting these changes put into the build. And I also have maybe 1 or 2 other changes I want to make, maybe a little bit more progress to put in. But it's very, very much, pretty much there with, in terms of the build that you will be playing on Steam. I'm already getting some people who are interested in doing reviews for the game and for playing the game on their Twitch and on their YouTube or TikTok. So, really excited for that. I'm definitely happy to be getting this out finally. And while this is, early access, the game's not done. And for most people, as most people are concerned, early access is almost kind of like the start of a game. So it's still a long way to go before the full release of the game, but there's been a whole lot of work to get to this point. So it's going to be nice to be able to get it out and have people be able to play it, see what people think, and be able to kind of change the game based on what more people think about it. Because so far, really, I've only had about 2 testers this whole time, so potentially going to be getting a lot more. Hopefully, that means a lot of good feedback, and less, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this game sucks. But we'll find out. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I will be continuing these updates even past early access, so there will be another one coming in a month. But for now, I will see you then. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good one.